Hi, I'm Judith. I'm the Head of Business Incubation at London College of Fashion, and welcome to the final IC panel today with the subject is the value in pivoting. Really, really big subject, and I'm sure we have lots of insight to share today. So before I introduce the panel, I found something researching online yesterday to think how to kick this off. And so I'm just going to read this out. And it's from the Mars startup called Toolkit. And this is a company in Canada. So I'm crediting you just in case you're here watching this. I'm not stealing this. Being an entrepreneur is really tough. Nowhere is this more obvious than in regards to pivoting versus persevering. I consider this to be the toughest single part of entrepreneurship. So I'm going to introduce our panel. We're going to be talking about pivoting. And then we'll have questions to the panel. We'll take some questions from the audience, and I'll round up as well with some top tips. So over to our panel. Frances, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, happy to be here. My name's Frances Odell and I work in the Graduate Futures team at London College of Fashion. That's a team that supports students realise their career ambitions, so be that employability, freelancing or setting up a business.
Thank you, Frances. Adi?
Hey everyone, I'm Adi. I'm the co-founder of Greendeck. So we are an artificial intelligence company. We help retailers monitor their competitors' pricing and promotion landscape using AI. And currently I'm also the co-founder of another company called Cliff.ai. I guess that's the reason I'm in this pivoting panel. I'll talk about that as well.
Great, thank you, Adi. And Zhanna, if
Hello,
you'd like
yes, I'm muted. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here. My name is Zhanna, and I'm co-founder of Senstile. And at Senstile, we are digitizing textiles, touch and feel properties to help the industry to source textiles digitally.
Thank you very much. So my first question is to Adi. When we were coaching together, you came to some realizations about the way you were operating, and you saw an opportunity to pivot a part of your business and develop Cliff AI. Can you tell us how that came about? How did you get your co-founders on board? And what changes did it mean for your team?
Sure, yeah. So just to give you a little more context about this whole situation. So we work with fashion retailers, and we were in conversation with quite a few of them, mostly all of them in Europe. So we were, this is I think Feb and March last year. So we were really, we have this like a 3-month-long pilot with a company where we try to understand their requirements. We customize our platform to better suit them. So things are going really well. And then we were with one really big luxury fashion retailer. We were on the verge of signing a contract, which would have changed the course of our company because we were like a less than 20 people company. And unfortunately, COVID happened. And so the company was based in Italy, which is one of the first European country to be hit very severely with COVID. So, and like to add to the irony, the person we were in conversation with, the head of procurement, so his last name was Corona. So,
how funny.
So the whole thing, basically, things went on to a complete standstill. Naturally, the retailers were more, they had to plan for their own, say, coming months and coming years as well. No doubt retail was hit. So we kind of had to take this decision that, I mean, the market signal was clear that things are not going to get better for at least the end of 2020. So it was, in that respect, it was a little easy decision for us that, we have to do something else meanwhile. We always wanted to diversify a little bit. So we wanted to get into domains other than fashion retail as well from the very beginning, but we just didn't know what exactly. Since the whole situation happened, we were kind of forced to think like in more depth about what it is that exactly we can do, and and the opportunity also seems vast enough in front of us. So that's when we kind of came across this idea of Cliff. One of my co-founders did. We had this conversation, and we were all interested in this whole concept. It seemed like a very promising domain, something which is very unexplored, and we were all very conscious that Greendeck is not going anywhere. We're not going to shut down Greendeck at all. Greendeck has been really good to us so far, and it's just a matter of going through this rough patch. So we decided to, with the just customers we had in Greendeck, like serve them for sure. We didn't make any further, extra developments from our end, and we instead started focusing on this new idea, which is Cliff, which is like a real-time monitoring platform. And we started talking to the market about this, and eventually we got a telecom company as a customer as well. So right now we're monitoring the 5G network of a Japanese telecom company using Cliff. So eventually things did pan out well for us.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That actually sounded like an incredibly smooth transition through what has been a really difficult time. And it sounds like your co-founders got on board with that, which is fantastic. Well done navigating that through a difficult time. So Francis, question for you. At LCF, you work with students who are coming up with business ideas. How do you support them when you can see their business idea isn't going to work, but they can't see that?
I think fundamentally, if you look at the lay of the land of enterprise and entrepreneurship and business, it's not risk averse. There's always risk. So it doesn't matter how much due diligence you do. There's always an element of risk. What we try to do is minimize the risk, and you minimize the risk through, for me, knowledge, awareness, what's going on in the market. I'm old enough. Back in the day, I used to work in the industry in the 80s, and the mantra was always, you don't dictate to the market dictates to you. And it's so true, because I think what happens a lot of the time with students, the creativity and the innovation is part of the DNA. That's the key. But I think it's the strategy and the leadership and the management and making informed business decisions. That's the sort of areas that they need to sort of develop more. So I think sort of what we try to do is, I never say bad idea, wrong idea. I usually sort of, they'll come up with the game plan and this is it. There's no plan B ever. This, whatever they come up with the first go, that's what it's going to happen. And I just sort of, question, what if that doesn't happen? What do you do then? Or why not? Why are you doing it? So what it does, the questioning actually gets them to think much more deeper. And then usually they'll go off and then come back with something different. Now, it's not a pivot per se, but they look and they've adapted it slightly. And they're not too regimented in their approach. So they're much more agile in thinking things through. And I think for us as a team, we just want to sort of develop that ability from the get-go. When I look at the word pivot historically, it has, and it might be my sort of philosophy looking at it, it's sort of been deemed as a sort of like not a good word. It's like, oh, you pivot when you don't know what's happening and you've got to change, and it's sort of more a failure than a design. I think if I've read recently during that, I think it was the FT did a piece, it was probably about sort of August, September, not necessarily fashion, but generally UK SMEs, 40% pivoted in the first 6 months of COVID last year, and 21% reported their best ever profit margins. So I think for me, it's about being agile, being aware. It's like, you know, knowing when to move, knowing what the needs and the wants of your market are, and just making sort of informed business decisions rather than sort of be shoehorned into having to change because things aren't happening. So I think for me, it's just the sort of awareness of the market. Testing is important. You just don't go in blind. Testing, but also then reflecting, and then, you know, if you need to pivot, you make an informed pivot rather than a knee-jerk reaction. So that's what we try to do.
Thank you very much. There's something there about setting your students up for success, and something about helping them make their own decision rather than you telling them what to do, which fits into the idea of coaching, which is one of the things that took place on the DeFINE panel. Sorry, I'm moving around a bit trying to get excuse me, I've got a rolly chair, and something I do when I'm a little bit nervous. Running this panel is the first time I've ever hosted a panel today, let alone online. So so yes, that's really interesting. And actually that word pivot, you talk about it being, you had a look and did that research. I did the same thing as well, that it had sort of negative connotations. But I think within the startup field, you know, pivot is something you do for breakfast.
Exactly.
Something you do for breakfast. It's an incredibly common word. So it's a different set of skills that entrepreneurs need and founders need to be able to manage that change. Absolutely. So with that in mind, Zhanna, I'm going to ask you a question, because you are again a very sort of, you know, tech company, and tech is moving at an incredible rate. So, you know, thinking about that, with the rapid advancement of tech, you could probably be pivoting your business every week. So my question to you is, how different is your business model now from when you started, and what have been your challenges?
I would say, of course, in our case, we are doing something very innovative, and there is no way to copy from somebody, you know. So again, we are pivoting almost every day. We are changing the things, we are doing tests, we are thinking, what if we do this way? But probably in our case, the fundamental shift also happened, like really fundamental, and more, we went into more ambitious business. And my journey in the case of the company was about my own personal crisis, I would say, because I went through the last year. It's not related with Senstile, it was my own things, and actually that helped to Senstile to become more ambitious and to change many things. And we changed drastically because I changed something in myself. I've noticed that I have fears, you know, to go to something very big, to build their company, and not just somebody is trying to help the industry, you know, because it's a huge responsibility when you take people, and when you take your customers, people with whom you are piloting, and you say, you know, we're going to do something big. We will not just try, we will bring results. And you need to have, you know, inside this, it has to be sense inside of you, otherwise just will never happen. And I think the crisis brought me inside this willingness actually to build a real company, big company, I mean, because we already were doing quite well. We had a good responses, but with this, I understood one thing, because I'm not in innovation. It's not a first project I'm doing in innovation. I mean, I have been in MIT, I finished the master in design and innovation. I have been doing many other projects. And for me, I always felt like innovation is like a flow that happening regardless of you. Like you have just to be in, you know, and it's kind of innovation wants to happen and it wants to materialize through people. But the problem is people's mind that always think something because of their own ego, because they love to control the process. This is one of the most important thing. Or there are fears and barriers, as I had myself. But when you remove those, you kind of feel that what I felt with Senstile, that there is a flow of innovation, and I'm taking Senstile on the side of that flow, you know, like kind of we are going in that direction, but we are aside a little bit. So what I needed is to dive into this flow and say, we are exactly in the middle of it. We are not on the side, you know. So, and when I realized that, what happened is I changed the whole team. The whole team changed. Yes, we changed the whole tech. Imagine we invested money, a good money. We just threw this all in the bin, all the algorithms, all the data set, all the sensor that we have been using. We changed completely the sensor. The data set has changed. The new people came. And, you know, it's interesting. When I took this decision really in my heart, it's like people started to come in, resources, money, opportunities, bigger companies, larger companies. So basically, and the shift was that in the beginning, I was taking company just to make help textile marketplaces and textile libraries to have some kind of a search engine that helps them to find similar textiles by their physical properties, which is we're still doing the same. We're still digitizing textiles in terms of physical properties, but now we are an aggregator. We are back-end platform itself that can aggregate many marketplaces at once, many libraries, even PDF catalogs if you want. So the fashion brand can access to all their suppliers at once. And then we just, when the search is happening in our platform, exactly of the physical properties or type of the textile fashion brand is looking for, then it's redirected to the web page of that customer. And that's the major shift, because from being just a tool for the platform, we became itself a back-end platform, much bigger and much more ambitious, and with much bigger goal, I would say. And also the amazing ideas came, like completely changed the UX. What you see actually on our videos, it was our old UX. Now, if you see the new one, is completely different level. It's really, you will feel like it's a different company today, and it is. And it happened just because I probably broke some barriers in myself. I found that I'm holding actually the company from being great, you know, because it has everything to be great.
That's amazing. So interesting to hear that. And, you know, it sounds like you had to really let go of something personally, not just professionally, to make those changes. And you know, the result sounds extraordinary. What happened there? Actually, I'm going to put that question over to Adi, because I find that incredibly inspiring. You know, Adi, you know, Zhanna talked about ego and letting go of, you know, her ego, and letting go of things personally to make that change. I wondered if any of that applied to you, Adi.
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, I can totally understand Zhanna's story and her revelations as well, because so I mean, you kind of, as an entrepreneur, you make a plan, and then, you know, you're putting in so much time, energy, effort. You're actually in many cases you're leading other people, your co-founders or your team, to believe in your vision, and somewhere down the line you realize that it's you made a mistake. It's a little difficult to you know, own it up, I think. So the easier option is to just keep going, you know, and tell yourself that perseverance is key, which is definitely, I mean, nothing against that, but it's kind of difficult to take that step back and, you know, first of all convince yourself that I need to make this change, and then later convince your team and your co-founders as well, because like I read somewhere that like there are two positions you can be. One is halfway up a ladder you don't want to be, and the other is at the bottom of a ladder that takes you to where you have to be. Which one is better? So it's never too late in that sense, and yeah, it does take a lot of courage to just say that, okay, what I decided at that time was probably right under those circumstances, but things change, circumstances change, people change, markets change, and right now what I have to do is this.
Yes, that's great. There's something about, you know, following your gut, isn't there, in terms of, we know we've got to make a decision, something isn't working, you know, even if you don't necessarily quite know what that is. It's like, you know, how do you make that decision? You know, what tools do you need? And sometimes, you know, you don't have the answer to that. And it is a feeling, you know, which is, you know, what Zhanna has said. And, you know, there is a big piece about how do you take the rest of your team and your founders, you know, on board. So, Zhanna, can I ask you that question? You know, how did you manage to get everyone going with you when you were making such big changes?
Oh, I don't know. It's a human topic is always difficult. And first of all, I had a lot of difficult conversation with my co-founder, really difficult ones. But it happens that I am the one who started Senstile. He just joined later on. So the decision is always, I'm the one who's taking the lead. I'm the one who's telling where to go. But we really had a lot of discussions and difficult ones. Sometimes it was an argument. But then also it was good to have arguments because we clarify many things the way we see the company. And for me, it's much bigger than for him. That's why probably these clashes were happening, because he wanted money faster than me. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking something that is a longer way than it's supposed to be to the market. You know, that's one of the point was there. But with team who was working on the technical side, and with textile side, that was very clear. They were not capable of taking this where I needed. They were just not capable. So, and you know, interesting that it was a moment when I was saying them, I will be taking you out, and they were ready. They knew about this because they also knew that they were not capable of taking it there. But I still didn't know who will be. You know, it was like everybody was looking at me like I'm a crazy person. Like, how can you remove your whole team if you don't have a new one yet, you know, and who will be giving them back everything what they have done? And said they will not need this information. They will just have a look what has been done. They will understand what was mistakes, but we will throw it. And that's the second thing that everybody looked at me like crazy, because we invested money, but I knew that we should not utilize what has been there. And it was very painful to throw it. I can tell you, it was super painful. And still now when I see the data set and it's taking the place, it's still there, but of course, when using it, I still feel like such a investment there, you know, but we don't need it. Okay, and then I would said to that, suddenly people appeared, you know, just the right people.
Thank you very much. This is just such an interesting way that this conversation is going, and it's really not how I imagined, but we're talking a lot about emotion, aren't we? And, you know, there's a lot of emotion attached to pivoting and, you know, difficult decision-making. And letting go, and that really brings me on to. I'm sorry, Francis, I haven't asked you.
No, don't worry. No, go move on.
But, I will bring you back in. But I have a question thinking about the support that you've received on this program, and you know, mentoring and coaching support was a key ingredient of the DeFINE project and the program that you're on, about helping you build resilience and learn new skills. So, Francis, I'm going to ask you, because you supported this program. How did you help the businesses build resilience?
You know, I mean, it's sort of coming off the back of what Zhanna was saying. I think bravery, reflection for me is key, because you can't keep being a cog in the wheel. You've got to know when you've got to put the brakes on, take a breather, and maybe reconfigure. And I think resilience is one of those things. It's sort of a word that's been bandied around a lot, but for me, it goes hand in hand with managing risk, and actually, it's how you respond. So, you know, you make changes, or you hit barriers, or you hit bottlenecks, or you have to pivot. It's that actually it's not the process of, it's actually coming through that. So resilience you can only measure after the fact, can't you? You look back and you go, wow, I came through that. I'm still here. I'm still sort of managing my business, or a new business. So I think, in a way, it's been used a lot in business, but I think inherently every single person has an element of resilience in them. I think what happens is they don't analyze it, or that they don't recognize it as such. But I think it's just really, going with your gut, like Zhanna said, that's being resilient. But it's being a leader. It's sometimes leading when no one else is following, and you're going to have to get a totally new team. But I think for me, it's like rolling with the punches. And we've already said that the sort of route of entrepreneurship and running a business is not linear. It's not without its peaks and troughs and bumps in the road and things. And I think it's how one navigates that. And you can talk about it and you can preempt things, but actually it'll be down to the individual to do. As a coach or mentor, you can articulate it, but actually it's the experience of, isn't it? It's the living through it, and then you looking back and analysing it, and then sort of referencing that going forward, because there's going to be more peaks and troughs and bumps in the road. So I think it's an inherent trait that you develop by doing.
Absolutely, yes, it's an experiential thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I feel like that. But there's a piece about changing the business and changing oneself. It's not just about changing the business. One has to change oneself as part of that, and actually change the team as well. So with that in mind, I'm going to question for Zhanna and Addy, thinking about that. Can founders teach themselves to manage change, or is it just something is it something that you just do as you come along? How easy is it for you to manage that change?
I can go ahead first. And of course, you have to teach this yourself. Nobody is born with these transformative skills, and this is what exactly I was going through. I was doing a lot of techniques. I was working on myself, and it's not that easy as it seems, like just to take and change. And talking like this because I went through this period, but I was full of fears doing it. I can tell you, it's like become vulnerable. You just I don't know how to explain. It's super hard. So you need to know these techniques. You need to know how to transform yourself. And as Frances and Judith, you said before, you have to wake up fresh every day. You should not have any bias. You should not be attached to what has been done. You have to be able to take it and throw it if you have to do it. And if we look at the stories of great entrepreneurs and great companies, they all had a moment when they almost threw 90% of the company and went to another direction, but it's super hard to do. And there are so many 90% of the stories who didn't do it and died. So the choice is very clear. But, it's very interesting that you pick up this topic, because for me, I realized there is not so much information on that for entrepreneurs. So I decided to collect some of the people that I know very mature in innovation, and to do maybe some podcasts or some kind of writing about this. How do you transform yourself? Because I feel like I will need a lot of this also knowledge. So
thank you very much.
Question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really enjoying this panel. It's great. So Addy, just over to you. You benefited from coaching on this program, which is the thinking space, the thinking safe, confidential space to have those sort of conversations. And I wondered how that worked for you.
Yeah, so I had coaching as part of DeFINE program with Judith, Tolley, who is part of this panel as well. So it was actually a very refreshing and very, I honestly didn't know what to expect. I have not done coaching, professional coaching before. But like if I just, putting into context the conversation that we're having about getting that strength to throw away things that you worked on for so hard, as Zhanna mentioned, and also Francis mentioned about the resilience bit, that you actually, once you look back, you realize what you've actually gone through. So I think in some ways, coaching did that to me. So often when you're so deeply rooted within a problem, you're not actually thinking from an outsider's perspective, right? You're thinking more from a operational perspective, maybe. And they say, right, you can't see the trees for the forest if you're standing so close to it. I think like the coaching sessions that we had, the biggest, like the common denominator in all was that your questions kind of helped me understand the problem from an outsider's perspective as well, which helped me arrive to the right decision, like all within the same session. So I think that perspective change matters a lot when you're going through this like such scenarios, which honestly we go through like quite a lot. And I think coaching, that's the biggest advantage that coaching had for me, like giving me that fresh perspective to realize what the concept, what the situation really looks like from a 360-degree perspective.
Great. That's great to hear, and that is what coaching is about. It's about helping you come up with the answer yourself. So that's good to know it's working, and that's great. So it's 12:33. I could spend another hour having this conversation with you all. I hope the audience are enjoying it, but I'm finding it very interesting. But we actually have some questions now that have come in through from the audience. So I'm a little bit aware of time, because I do want to ask you for your top tips at the end of this. So please be thinking about those as we're speaking. But I have some questions that have come in. So, okay, so an audience question from Amina. Hope I'm getting that right. How do investors react when you pivot? So Zhanna, investors gave you money. Did your pivot trouble get in the way?
Okay. First, from the beginning, I knew to focus on investments that will not put me in position that I have to listen to somebody. That's something that I so many times in other companies and projects I have been in, and I was very careful about this. So it was only the money that gave me freedom to do what if I needed to change, I changed it. But the worst part of this story, that half of the investment was my money, so we threw my money basically, and that was the hardest thing.
Wow.
Yes, that was like, okay.
Wow. So
but
it was very personal.
I had freedom to move. I didn't have problems with this.
Amazing. So actually giving something away, that was hard cash. Actually, it sounds like it really opened things up for you. And yeah,
it was necessary.
It was necessary. Yes, it's interesting. That's a question, isn't it? Actually, I'm just going to ask you, Adi, if you hadn't have pivoted, what would have happened if you hadn't done it and you hadn't taken on Cliff AI, developed that? Where would you have been? What would have happened?
Probably there would be a panel of failed startups, which I would be a part of. So, but yeah, I think if we had kept going, so the thing is, we were already making revenue, and we lost a few of our existing customers who had to shut down, but we were still earning money. So I think we wouldn't have died because we were still earning, but there wouldn't have been any growth for the last, I would say, 8 to 10 months. And I think from a morale perspective, it would have been worse. So I'm guessing, I mean, as a team, as a young team, so we are right now 30 people. Things are really energetic, and more so if you're working from home. So you need to keep that energy there with people. So I think the morale of the team would have been really down if they see nothing happening. And yeah, it would be a matter of time till the team members themselves, kind of decide that they need to pivot from their career right now and move on to maybe a different job opportunity, which might offer them more growth and more learning. I think that was the situation that might have occurred.
So what did you have to do to get them on board? You've got a big team now. How did you do it?
So I mean, we're very transparent with the whole team. So we're like a very, it's not like a massive 1,000 people team. It's just 30 people, and we're all very young. So the average age is, I think, around 25 of the team. So we kind of keep things very transparent. We told them this is the situation. It's everyone knows that retail is going through a tough phase right now. We may not be able to get more new customers on board on Greendeck. The existing ones are there, which is great. We have this new opportunity that's come up, and we are really invested in it. We share the opportunity with them. I mean, they're all interested because it's a totally new thing to start working on, more learning and more, it's just like an interesting problem to solve, I would say. So people were very enthusiastic about the whole thing. And of course, I mean, from a job security perspective, we had to clarify the logistics, of course, that there's no problem at all. I mean, obviously, everyone would want that transparency, right? That if I know that there's a tough period going on, but is my job safe? So that's 100% there. And we have this new opportunity, and we very quickly got this new customer as well. So things just picked up from there. I think we didn't lose momentum, luckily, because we made the switch we didn't waste a lot of time, I think. So I think by April we had started working on Cliff. So and March was when things started getting a little down. So because there was no lack of momentum, it wasn't really a tough task for us to remotivate the team again. So right. Yeah, I think timing played a good role for us.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Very interesting. Your experiences are different. Zhanna, yours is about breaking something down to start up again and opening up opportunities. Adi, yours is, you saw that opportunity for sort of a slight deviation, do something new, and you've managed to take the rest of your team with you. I mean, it's quite a big team to make that change and be the leader, and have everyone else join along behind you and get following. So it's in summing up, before we go on to the top tips. Yeah, I'm a bit gobsmacked. That's a sort of yeah, I'm really amazed to hear how the emotion that's come with this, that it's not just hard facts and figures of if we don't change we're going to our business is going to collapse. It's not just a sort of like a numbers thing. There's a lot of emotion attached to it as well, and I think that's really come across. And it's about how, as entrepreneurs and founders, do you prepare yourself to go not into battle, but to sometimes leave your arms at the door and move forward and bring everyone else along with you as well. And it comes back to that thing about resilience as well, which is something that you need to be building all the time. As an entrepreneur, building those layers around to make you strong, both emotionally, to bring your team and the rest of your investors and whoever you need to get to where you want to, which is your dream. I'm going to, we're wrapping up and we're finishing at like literally in 4 minutes. So quick fire round. And before I do that, say a massive thank you to you for joining in. I was very nervous. This has been really, really enjoyable. And I hope everyone's learned something from this. I think it's, you've shared a lot and it's very generous of you. So your 2 top tips for today, and I've lost this question. What have I done with it? Yeah, pivoting. 2 top tips for pivoting. Francis is going to kick off with you, and we've got 4 minutes left.
Okay, so make sure it's an informed pivot, not a knee-jerk reaction. So I would suggest that you test and reflect and analyse before moving forward. And for me, I suppose the key to all this is you've got to have your finger on the pulse of whatever market, or actually your market segment, but the broader market, because I think what we've seen, we're used to evolution and movement. We've seen a revolution in the last sort of 12 months, and speed has been everything, and it's those that have been speedy.
On that note, speed is what we need to be doing. We've literally now got 3 minutes left. So Zhanna, 1 tip from you. I don't think we've got time for more. 1 fast tip from you. What's your tip about?
Yeah, the first tip will be always training this pivoting and doing this little by little all the time. So you avoid the big changes, which is most important thing because it's very hard to do. And second is, of course, careful planning, because you will be the valley when you go down and only then you go up. You have to calculate how much time, how much cost it will take, and what are the gains. That's my top tips.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And Adi, we're going to end on you. 2 tips, and you've got 2 minutes.
Right. So so Francis mentioned testing. So that I just wanted to, while testing, avoid confirmation bias, because that's something that I think most founders do. Like they're not even aware of it. Just trying to reinforce what they already know and looking for those keywords which say, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking about, and ignoring the rest of the sentence. That's one thing. And second, I think, yeah, pivoting, once again, Francis mentioned at the very beginning that it's got a negative connotation to it. So there's no reason for that. It's pivoting is basically evolution. And yeah, I mean, you because starting up is a very practical experience, right? And the only way to find out your results is by testing them, and you're not always right on the first go. So you make a hypothesis, you test it out. If it doesn't work, you try again with certain tweaks in your hypothesis, and that's the way it should be. And Zhanna mentioned small steps at a time.
Amazing. So yes, absolutely, pivoting. You can't evolve if you don't pivot. That would be my sort of final takeaway from this conversation today. So thank you very much indeed. It's been amazing. And Katie is going to tell you about where you can go and see us again if you'd like to have a look and share this with friends. But massive thank you to everybody. I hope everyone's learned a lot. I certainly